April 18, 1943, 9:34 a.m., 10,000 feet over Bougainville, Solomon Islands. The Pacific sky is a deep, endless blue, a vast ocean above the ocean. The sunlight glints off the silver wings of 18 P-38 Lightning slicing through humid air, their twin engines humming in unison. In the lead cockpit, Major John W. Mitchell checks his watch. Every second matters. The operation, Vengeance, depends on timing down to the minute. He knows their target, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind of Pearl Harbor. The message intercepts have given the Japanese commander's exact route and schedule. Somewhere ahead, a formation of Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers will be droning toward Bougainville, escorted by nimble Zero fighters. Mitchell's flight is silent, oxygen masks muffling breath, sweat dripping beneath leather helmets. They've been flying low over the water for hours, barely 50 feet above the waves to avoid Japanese radar. The smell of hot oil and the constant vibration of twin Allison engines fill the cockpit. One wrong twitch on the yoke, and they'll skip across the Pacific like a stone. As the coastline of Bougainville looms closer, the men of the 339th and 12th Fighter Squadrons adjust formation. Rex T. Barber wipes condensation from his gun sight. Thomas G. Lanphier Jr. flexes his gloved hands on the controls. None of them speak. They know what's at stake. Far to the north, the Japanese aircrew aboard Yamamoto's transport aircraft are oblivious. They cruise confidently, their green-painted Bettys glimmering in the tropical sun. The admiral, sitting calmly in his seat, looks over the endless blue and murmurs about duty and destiny. His pilots laugh about the American fighters, the strange ones with twin tails. Too heavy, too slow, they'd once said. They can't turn with a Zero. But down below, closing in fast, the P-38 Lightnings have come to prove otherwise. The lead flight climbs from wave-top height into the blinding sunlight. The Allison engines howl as throttles are pushed forward. Mitchell's voice crackles over the radio, calm, controlled. All flights break off. Intercept pattern. Go get him. Barber and Lanphier bank their P-38s into a rising arc, sun glinting off the twin booms. The airframe shudders under acceleration as they climb into position. Ahead, black dots appear. Slow-moving bombers flanked by a swarm of escorting Zeros. Lanphier's eyes narrow behind his goggles. This is it, the revenge strike for Pearl Harbor. As the distance closes, gun safety covers flip open. The 20mm cannon and 450 caliber machine guns in each Lightning's nose glint like teeth in the morning light. The Japanese formation still hasn't seen them. Not yet. Mitchell's timing was perfect. In mere seconds, history will pivot, not with speeches or treaties, but with the scream of engines, the stutter of gunfire, and the fall of an admiral. 18 months earlier, late 1942, New Guinea front. Thick jungle presses against a rough airstrip carved out by bulldozers and sweat. Heat shimmers between dispersed tents and revetments where mechanics work shirtless, their bodies streaked with grease and mosquito bites. A pilot climbs down from a battered Bell P-39 Airacobra, frustration etched across his face. They call it the meat grinder. Out here, the Japanese Navy and Army fighters, agile Mitsubishi A6M0s and Nakajima Ki-43 Oscars, rule the sky. Swift, lightweight, deadly in the horizontal turn. American pilots know the drill. Dogfight with a Zero and you die. A commotion sweeps across the field. Ground crews pause. Heads turn. A silver shape drops from the cloud layer, descending toward the strip like an avenging spirit. Its twin Allison engines scream. The unfamiliar shape, long nose, twin booms, double tail, seems alien. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning touches down in theater for the first time. Japanese pilots would soon mock it. Too heavy to turn. Worse than a flying barn door. They call it Nihon Senpuki. Two-engine fan. The twin tails look ridiculous, almost comical. In air combat, they believe beauty equals performance, and nothing is more graceful than the Zero. To them, the P-38 looks like a mistake. Major Richard Bong remembers the first briefing like it's burned into the inside of his skull. Don't dogfight. Don't turn. You climb, you dive. You boom and zoom. That's the mantra. The P-38's strengths aren't in ballet moves. They're in raw physics. Speed, over 400 miles per hour in a shallow dive. Firepower and all guns in the nose, no convergence issues. Range, twice that of most Allied fighters in theater. Its silhouette is unmistakable, predatory, mechanical, intimidating, but its first pilots in the Pacific don't yet know how to exploit that. First combat, October 1942 at 22,000 feet. The sky thins into pale blue ice. Lieutenant Ken Sparks banks his P-38 and spots them below, 5 Zeros weaving like white gulls. The Americans dive, throttles pushed to the firewall, twin engines wail, airspeed indicator needles climb, Sparks waits. 2,000 feet above the enemy, he pulls harder. The Lightning drops like a thrown spear. The Japanese flight, surprised, scatters. Sparks squeezes the trigger. The nose-mounted .50 calibers spit a stream of fire. Tracers reach out. Metal flakes off the Zero's wing. The aircraft rolls over, flames licking from the fuel tank. The remaining Zeros finally react, banking, rolling into tight, coiling spirals. They expect Sparks to follow to attempt the deadly turn. He doesn't. He climbs instead. Engines roaring, using sheer horsepower to rise away. The Zeros chase, but they're losing altitude, losing speed. One climbs to follow and mistake. Sparks reverses, dives again, and obliterates him in a single cannon burst. The radio crackles with disbelief. "This thing climbs like a homesick angel." Word spreads through the squadrons. This machine can dictate the fight. Meanwhile, at Rabaul, Japanese Naval Air Base in a smoky, humid briefing shack, Japanese pilots analyze reports from survivors. New American fighter. Twin engines. Fast in a dive, the commander frowns. It cannot outturn a Zero. Laughter echoes. They pour tea and sake, confident. Their ace culture, individual dueling honor, blinds them to the shift happening before their eyes. The P-38 isn't here to duel. It's here to hunt. By January 1943, the Lightning develops a new reputation. The Japanese nickname it the fork-tailed devil. Not because of its looks, but because it started killing their best pilots. Maritime patrols, P-38's intercept recon flights, P-38's ambush long-range raids, P-38s appear out of nowhere. Japanese elite aces begin falling one by one, often in clean boom and zoom attacks they never see coming. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, the Japanese pilots fear an opponent, and by spring 1943, Allied intelligence intercepts a message, coded, urgent and soaked with strategic arrogance. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto will be inspecting frontline bases on April 18th. Exact route, time, and altitude included. The Americans can scarcely believe it. The architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, in a predictable flight plan. Broad daylight? Washington gives a single-word reply, get him. And the unit selected for the mission, the only fighter in the Pacific with the range to reach Yamamoto, attack and return, is the P-38 Lightning. Suddenly, the mocked twin-engine mistake becomes the most valuable weapon in the Pacific, back in the present, April 18, 1943. Barber, Lanphier, and Mitchell dive into the attack run. Their throttles are firewalled. Their guns are hot. This is what the P-38 was born to do. This is where the laughing stops. April 18, 1943, 9:37 a.m. Above Bougainville, Rex T. Barber steadies his P-38 as the formation breaks into the attack. His gloved thumb rests lightly on the trigger button, but he waits. Every second he waits keeps the ambush intact. Below, faint but rising over the canopy tops, comes the rhythmic hum of Japanese engines. He sees them first. 2 Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers flying line abreast. Their green fuselages shaped like long cigars, glass noses glittering, and to the rear, white dots arcing in lazy circles. Zeros. Major Mitchell's voice crackles over the radio. Target in sight. Execution order confirmed. The hunters spread apart, each Lightning taking its assigned role. 4 P-38s, the attack flight, climb to cut off the bombers. The rest fan out across the sky, forming a protective ring. The mission is surgical. No radio chatter. No improvisation. The entire ambush is timed to the second. Barber angles his P-38 upward and watches Lanphier pull slightly ahead, using pure airspeed to gain the advantageous dive position. Below, the Japanese pilots remain relaxed. They think the skies are theirs. Yamamoto, inside the lead bomber, studies maps and paperwork. He believes his flight plan, secret, He doesn't know America's codebreakers. Cracked it. He doesn't know 18 P-38s have flown 400 miles skimming ocean waves to get here. He doesn't know death is approaching from the sun. A flash of silver Thomas. Lanfear tips his Lightning over the top. Gravity pulls the twin-engine fighter into a steep dive. Airspeed climbs. The wind screams over the canopy. The Bettys grow from dots to targets. Barber follows, offset to the right. His heartbeat pounds against the oxygen mask. Pick one. Commit. The air around his P-38 shudders. Moisture beads along the windscreen. The Pacific glitters beneath him like shattered glass. At 600 yards, Lanfear opens fire. 4 50 caliber machine guns and 1 20mm cannon spit flame, recoiling violently through the Lightning's nose. The noise isn't a staccato gunshot, it's a continuous roar. Brass casings rattle down the booms. White streaks of tracer carve through the air. The lead Betty jolts. A burst walks across its wing route. The Japanese formation erupts in chaos. Zeros peel away like startled swallows, rolling, braking, diving. Their pilots are stunned. No head-on warning. No maneuvering duel. This wasn't combat. This was an ambush. Inside the lead bomber and the Betty, chaos strikes like lightning. A cannon shell shreds the port engine. Smoke blooms. The pilot fights the controls. Yamamoto, strapped into his seat, remains silent, absorbing the reality. The Americans knew. He doesn't curse. He doesn't panic. The architect of Pearl Harbor simply nods, accepting fate. Barber's Run Rex Barber lines up the second Betty. The bomber tries to dive for the treetops. Too late. Guns, guns, guns. His 50 cal stitch along the fuselage. The 20mm cannon punches through the engine cowling. The Betty coughs black smoke, then flames. The pilot attempts one last desperate bank. Wings wobbling, losing lift. Barber stays tight behind him. 100 yards. He fires a final burst. The right wing tears free. The bomber rolls inverted and slams into the jungle canopy, swallowed instantly by green. Barber pulls up sharply, fighting G-forces. Sweat drains into his eyes. But his mind burns with a single realization. The mission has succeeded. Yamamoto's plane is down. Now the Japanese react. Zeros swarm back into the fight, enraged and desperate. Their radios explode with frantic orders. Protect the Admiral. Intercept the enemy. The escort leader banks hard, nose pointed toward Barber. The Zero closes like a knife, but Barber doesn't dogfight, he climbs. The Lightning roars upward. The Zero tries to follow, but the climb rate is brutal, punishing. The P-38's twin Allisons drag it higher and higher. The Zero falls behind, engine screaming at redline. Barber rolls over the top and dives back toward the threat, nose guns blazing. The long-range escort fighter that Japanese pilots mocked becomes a hammer, and every Zero becomes a nail. Lanfear's dual Lanfear veers into a shallow climb, a Zero at his 6. The Japanese ace pushes in, confident. He knows the Zero outturns anything. He tightens the radius. Lanfear doesn't turn. He dives. The Lightning builds speed faster than the Zero can dream. Wind noise becomes a banshee shriek. Lanfear pulls gently, lines up, and fires a controlled burst. The Zero disintegrates in midair. That's when the Japanese pilots finally understand. The Lightning decides the fight. The Zero reacts to it, but the fight isn't over. The attack flight must now escape 400 miles over open ocean with minimal fuel. Damaged aircraft and furious Japanese fighters in pursuit. Mitchell calls out over radio, his voice clipped but composed. All aircraft, RTB, do not engage. We have what we came for. The men of the P-38 squadron turn toward home. Behind them, Bougainville burns, and deep in the jungle canopy, the wreckage of a bomber rests motionless, carrying the body of the most powerful admiral in the Imperial Japanese Navy. The laughter about the P-38 Lightning stops forever. April 18, 1943, 9:48 a.m. Over Bougainville. The jungle below disappears under a blur of green. The air smells of cordite, sweat, and hot engine oil. The P-38s scatter, regroup, and bank southeast toward the open Pacific. Rex Barber squeezes the yoke, hands trembling, adrenaline thick in his bloodstream. He should feel triumph, instead he feels hunted. Japanese radios scream. Zeros accelerate in furious pursuit, diving from altitude in angry white arcs. Their pride, their honor, demands retaliation. Major John Mitchell calls over the radio, voice low but commanding. Do not turn back. Stay on course. Get home, fuel is critical. Every Lightning launched from Guadalcanal at maximum internal load plus 2 drop tanks. They had calculated, down to the gallon, that they would have just enough to intercept Yamamoto and return. But combat ruins calculations. Barber glances down at his fuel gauge. One tank is nearly dry. The second is dropping fast. He slams the emergency release lever. The empty drop tank falls away and spins into the canopy far below. Lanfear does the same. One tank fails to release and stays attached. It's dead weight. He will have to fly the entire return trip with drag. Zeros close the distance. The chase Zeros scream into the pursuit from high altitude. Their engines wound tight. The lead fighter dives toward Lanfear, closing rapidly. The Japanese ace expects feared a desperate turn, but Lanfear keeps going, straight and level. Fast. The Lightning's twin Allisons howl past 340 map in a dive. It can outrun anything in the theater. But level flight, with one drop tank hanging under the wing, it's a gamble. Lanfear checks the mirror. The Zero fills the reflection, growing larger. He nudges the yoke, entering a shallow descent. The airspeed indicator climbs. The nose vibrates. The canopy rattles. The Zero stays glued to him. Lanfear whispers through clenched teeth. Come on. Faster. The Lightning breaks 380 miles per hour. The Zero falls behind slightly, but not enough. Its pilot is determined to avenge Yamamoto. Lanfear knows he can't turn. He can't climb. The drop tank makes everything drag. He slides his hand to the throttle quadrant and does the only reckless thing he can. He drops to wave-top height. Ocean spray kicks up behind the P-38's propellers. The airframe shakes. Both engines scream in tortured harmony as Lanfear races across the surface, low enough to cut through seagull flocks. Any lower and he'll dip a prop into the sea. The Zero tries to follow. It can't. The Lightning's weight, once mocked, becomes the Zero's death sentence. As Lanfear pulls away, foam bursts behind him as the Zero touches a wingtip to the water. A heartbeat later, it explodes. Mitchell's group. Mitchell leads the remaining P-38s into formation. They fly in silence, engines running lean to save every last gallon. Their mission was precise. The escape must be perfect. A pilot checks his map and murmurs, 400 miles of nothing, no radio chatter, no celebration, no confirmation of Yamamoto's fate, just ocean. Barber's Lightning shudders from bullet holes. He wipes sweat from his eyes, ignoring the tremors in his hands. He pictures the Betty he shot down, its wing breaking clean off, and forces the image away. He scans the sky. No Zeros. Then, a glint. High. Left. 1 Zero streaks downward, diving from the sun. Barber jerks the throttle full forward. The Lightning leaps, but not fast enough. Gunfire tears past his canopy, a streak of red tracers. Barber yanks into a shallow dive, skimming the ocean's surface. He flies so low that seawater pelts the underside of his wings. The Zero closes for the kill. Barber doesn't panic. He pushes the left throttle to the stop. Pulls back on the right, a hard asymmetric burst. The P-38 snaps into a violent skid. The Zero overshoots. Barber pulls the trigger. A single burst. The Zero cartwheels into the sea. Silence returns. The long ride home hours pass. Heat builds inside the greenhouse cockpit. Sweat trickles down Mitchell's neck. Some pilots shut off engines one at a time to sip fuel. They glide. Restart. Glide again. Every minute feels like an hour. Finally, a faint smudge on the horizon. Guadalcanal. Home. The airfield erupts with cheering ground crews as the Lightnings descend, engines sputtering. One by one they touch down, rolling to a stop with nearly empty tanks. Barber climbs out of his cockpit, legs weak. His crew chief looks at the bullet holes and fuel-stripped tanks and just whistles. Hell of a milk run, Lieutenant. Barber removes his goggles. His hands still shake. We got him. The words ripple through the airbase like shockwaves. Ground crewmen cheer. Pilots stare in disbelief. No one speaks for a full 5 seconds. And then a roar erupts across the field. Men who have lost friends, brothers, entire units stand on crates and cheer until their throats burn. The architect of Pearl Harbor is dead. The fighter the Japanese mocked delivered the blow. Back at Rabaul, Japanese officers recover Yamamoto's body in silence. No one speaks. No one laughs. The elite Ace Corps, once the pride of the empire, now sees a new truth. The Americans have a fighter that can reach anywhere, a fighter that doesn't duel, a fighter that hunts. May-December 1943, New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Central Pacific. The death of Admiral Yamamoto doesn't end the war, but it changes everything. Word spreads across every Japanese airfield from Rabaul to Truk. Ground crews whisper it. Pilots deny it. Commanders bury it in euphemism. The Admiral's plane was forced down, but pilots know the truth. A strange twin-tailed American fighter hunted the Empire's most protected leader deep inside Japanese territory, and got away. In barracks, young Zero pilots gather around their aces demanding answers. What is the American fighter like? How do we defeat it? The aces, men with 20 or 30 kills, offer the same answer, forced through clenched teeth. Do not climb after it. Do not dive with it. Behind these warnings is fear. The Imperial Japanese Navy had spent years celebrating the Zero as untouchable, the perfect blend of maneuverability and grace. But grace means nothing when your opponent refuses to dance. The P-38 doesn't turn. The P-38 pounces. Allied command sees an opening over coconut palms and dusty coral airstrips. Squadron command tents buzz with new energy. White chalk maps mark the next Japanese bases to be isolated, neutralized, starved. The key is air dominance. The tool is the P-38 top mission boards begin filling with red strings. Fighter sweeps, long-range bomber escort. Interdiction patrols. Aggressive ace hunting Major Richard Bong is at a quiet Wisconsin kid with a disarming smile, begins making daily tallies of aerial victories. Unlike the Zero aces who dive into duels, Bong stalks from altitude, drops in on unsuspecting targets, fires and climbs away. Boom, zoom, gone. He doesn't need to prove anything, he just needs results. By the end of 1943, Bong becomes the leading American ace of the entire war. Flying the P-38 Lightning, he never loses a wingman. Japan sends its best in response to mounting losses. The Japanese High Command transfers elite squadrons to the Solomons. These are veterans of China, Pearl Harbor, Darwin, champions of an era where air combat was elegant. They arrive confident. They depart humbled. The fork-tailed devil earns its name on a humid August morning. Bong and his wingman find a formation of enemy fighters and bombers climbing out of Rabaul. Altitude 24,000 feet, perfect dive angle. Bong gives only 3 words over radio. You take high. He drops throttle, nose down, howling into a steep dive. The world compresses into vibration, wind, and target fixation. His cannons rip open the bomber's engine. Smoke boils. The bomber falls. Before Bong can climb out, a Zero slips behind him. The Japanese ace smiles, uncertain of the kill. The Zero's wings dip into a tight spiral as the pilot aims for the tail. But Bong's wingman appears out of nowhere, engine screaming. His burst tears through the Zero's cockpit. The Japanese ace slumps forward. Bong keys the mic. Good shot. The wingman replies, stay close and don't turn. That becomes the doctrine. Nobody dogfights a Zero. You kill it and disappear. Zeros can't adapt. The Japanese have always relied on agility. The Zero sacrifices, armor, self-sealing tanks, structural durability, all for turn rate, but war evolves. The P-38 brings enormous firepower concentrated straight ahead, turbo-supercharged engines that laugh at altitude, a climb rate the Zero cannot match. Unprecedented range, the Zero pilots press hard, sometimes desperately. Their aircraft can twist around the P-38 in a horizontal turn. But that victory is meaningless if they can never initiate the fight. Dogfighting is not romantic anymore. Dogfighting is suicidal. A new kind of air war radar on island. Peaks begins vectoring P-38s toward incoming bombers. Intelligence intercepts Japanese radio traffic. Codebreakers feed P-38 squadrons targets. Weather flights, reconnaissance runs, supply transports. The Lightning becomes a scalpel. A Zero ace takes off to check weather. A P-38 is already climbing to intercept. A bomber takes off for a supply run to Bougainville. A P-38 squadron is waiting halfway, engine noise masked by cloud cover. Every Japanese flight becomes a risk. Every patrol becomes a gamble. In the skies of the Pacific, Japanese pilots begin scanning not for dogfights, but for death from above. The war turns by winter 1943. The Japanese Ace Corps, carefully built through years of conquest, is bleeding away. The P-38 kills not just aircraft but experience. Each lost veteran is replaced by a rushed recruit. American pilots grow confident. Japanese pilots grow cautious, and whenever Zeros take off, ground crews watch the thin line of twin contrails high above them. Hunters, patrolling, waiting. The P-38 has taken control of the sky, and it is not done yet. January 1944, Rabaul, New Britain. The Japanese stronghold once throbbed like a hornet nest. Now it feels like a tomb. Hangars are full of planes that never fly. Spare parts are gone. Aviation fuel is rationed. The Zero Aces who once swaggered into briefings now walk with heavy shoulders, eyes scanning the clouds. Every morning at first light, a distant rumble rolls across the harbor. Twin engines, twin contrails, forked tails, P-38, Lightnings. The pilots on the ground don't know where the Americans come from. They emerge from the sun, from behind cloud banks, from altitudes so high they seem to descend from the heavens themselves. The Japanese still hold the airfield, but the Americans own the sky. The systematic elimination of Japanese aces, the defeat of Yamamoto, did more than kill a leader. It revealed a new warfare philosophy that the Japanese never adapted to. American pilots now fought as teams. P-38s flew in pairs or fours, relaying altitude, position, and fuel status. The Japanese still relied on individual glory. The Lightning had no interest in glory. It was a scalpel, meant to end the enemy's talent. Day after day, new operations appear on mission boards. Target, recon aircraft leaving Rabaul. Target, transport flying wounded pilots to truck. Target, veteran ace suspected on weather flight. The American strategy was ruthless, clinical. Kill the pilots they couldn't replace. The Lightning versus the Empire's remaining legends. In early 1944, Japan dispatches one of its most gifted survivors, Sub-Lieutenant Takeo Tanamizu, a Zero Ace with deadly instinct and uncanny eyesight. On his first encounter with the P-38, he spots a pair at 25,000 feet. He climbs to engage. Mistake. The Lightnings see him. They do not turn to face him. They don't acknowledge him at all. They climb. Higher. Higher. Tanamizu pushes his Zero harder, engine screaming, airframe trembling. He tries to follow. He can't. The Lightnings crest over the top of their arc, roll inverted, and drop toward him like twin silver anvils, a blur of gunfire. Tanamizu dives for cloud cover, shaken. He survives, barely, and returns to base with a single sentence for his commander. We cannot catch them. The longest reach, the Lightning goes. Everywhere, while other fighters rely on short fields and nearby carriers, the P-38 leaps across entire island chains. Maps on briefing boards stretch farther and farther. Guadalcanal, Bougainville, New Guinea, New Britain, New Guinea, Biak, Biak. The Philippines' distances measured in hundreds of miles become the Lightning's hunting ground. The Zero pilots can't understand it. How do they get here? Where do they come from? How can they still be fueled? The answer is simple. Range. The P-38 has belly tanks and wing tanks and drop tanks. It can reach you even if you think you are safe, especially if you think you are safe. March 1945, Luzon. The Philippines Major Richard Bong, America's top ace with 40 victories, steps off the wing of his P-38 and rubs grease from his hands. Cameras flash. Correspondents want quotes, autographs, interviews. He never asks to be famous. He asks only one thing. Who's taking my place in the morning patrol? The P-38 community was different. No bravado, no ego. Just relentless efficiency. When Bong is rotated home, the torch passes to others. Thomas McGuire, Charles McDonald, Gerald Johnson. They push deep into enemy territory, hunting bombers and transports, stripping the Japanese command structure flight by flight. The Zero aces are dwindling. The replacements are barely trained. And the P-38 is always waiting at altitude. Japan's final nightmare. Fighters they cannot reach late. 1944. Over Formosa, Taiwan, American bombers attack Japanese factories and shipyards. Escorting them, far beyond what any fighter had previously done, are P-38 Lightnings, the Japanese scramble interceptors. But before they reach the bombers, a swarm of P-38s drops from 30,000 feet and rips through the formation. Zero after zero falls flaming through the clouds. One bomber gunner writes in his diary, "They arrive like guardian angels with fangs." The war's final act by 1945. The P-38 has escorted bombers over Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the Philippines. The Chinese coast thousands of sorties. Hundreds of kills. On the ground, wrecked Zero fuselages litter runways like broken skeletons. Missing wings, bullet-holed cowls, shredded control surfaces. Ground crews drag them into pits and burn them. They don't bother stripping parts. Nothing will save them now. Japanese ace Saburo Sakai, the most respected surviving fighter pilot of the empire, finally admits what every pilot already knows. The P-38 was the toughest opponent we faced in the Pacific. The Zero may have ruled the beginning of the war. The P-38 ruled the end of it. August 1945, war's end. When the armistice is announced, P-38s sit quietly on coral airstrips. Their engines cool. Their guns are cleaned one final time, no cheering, no fist pumping, just exhausted pilots sitting on wing edges staring at the ocean. They don't think about glory. They think about who didn't come home. They think about the morning Yamamoto died, when 18 Lightnings skimmed the Pacific at wave height to change the direction of a war. And they remember what the Japanese aces once